Hello everyone, and welcome to the ARL workshop on Toni Morrison's The Bluest Eye. We will be sharing some of the most important things to know about this novel and how it can be interpreted. The structure will follow pretty simple lines, where we will introduce the novel's context, followed by the description of characters, and then ending with the themes that can be found in this text. The very last slide will provide some practice questions with which you can hopefully prepare for your exam. The Bluest Eye is a postmodern novel published in 1970. Postmodern literature is more playful and self-referential, meaning that old conceptions and traditions are usually broken or changed. Because of technological advances, literature would also pick up new ways of perceiving through different medial frames. Another element was the skepticism and deconstruction of language, another break with traditions. The novel was received with a lot of mixed feelings because of the contents and language used, especially considering that it tells a story about a minor. Apart from this criticism, there were also a lot of appreciative voices that saw the importance and value in representing the realities of the Black community within anti-Black societies. Toni Morrison lived from 1931 to 2019 and was an African-American woman. She grew up in a working-class family in Ohio, which also features in her novel. Morrison won a Nobel Prize for Literature in 1993 because her work would usually address important social issues and would also address inequalities. She was very involved in political movements for equal rights and against racism, and would openly speak out about these issues in America. The characters of the novel can be sorted into three factions. First, we have the Breedloves, which has Pecola, the protagonist, her father Jolly, her mother Pauline, and her brother Sammy. The most central relationships are between Pecola and her parents. She experiences a lot of abuse, both domestic, from her mother, and sexual, from her father, which will accompany her throughout the novel. The second faction is the McTeer household, made up of Claudia, the narrator of this novel, her sister Frida, her mother, and their boarder Henry Washington. The last faction is made up of the secondary characters that appear throughout the novel but don't really play central roles in the story. The sex workers China, Poland, and Miss Marie, who befriend Pecola, Mr. Jakubowski, the grocer, Rosemarie Villanucci, a neighbor girl, Maureen Peel, the light-skinned biracial girl that seems to consider herself better than both Pecola and Claudia, Geraldine and Junior, Pecola's neighbors, Sopet Church, a self-proclaimed misanthrope, and from Jolly's past, Aunt Jimmy, Samson Fuller, Blue Jack, M'Dear, and Darlene. Nicola will now talk in more detail about Pecola and Claudia.
Now that we've heard about the characters in general and their roles in the story, let's focus on the main protagonist Pecola and the second main narrator Claudia a bit more. Pecola Breedlove is very passive and mysterious. We don't receive much from her, but from observations made by Claudia. She is lonely and imaginative, and loves to fantasize. She suffers greatly from racism and poverty, and is, with her struggles, a symbol of Black community's self-hatred. The fantasy world is her only way to escape the violence and pain, even her very existence. She desperately wants to disappear due to the violence she experiences, not only at home, but also at school. One of her wishes is that she wants others to love her. She believes that having blue eyes will change how others see her and how she would see the world. When she loses her sanity, she thinks her wish is granted and escapes a world where she cannot be beautiful. She regains her innocence by acquiring the blue eyes. Claudia McTeer is the narrator of the story. She may be the second main character and tells Pecola's and her own story from her point of view. Similarly to Pecola, she suffers from racism and poverty, But the major difference here is that she has a loving family, unlike Peccola. This makes a huge difference in how she perceives herself and the world. She is also a fighter and protector. For example, when she fights with the boys that are bullying Peccola. Finally, she is able to overcome the pain that drove Peccola into madness. The Bluest Eye has various themes that are apparent. Some of them are the following. The effects of white supremacy is one of the very important theme, as it is shown with how, for example, Peccola's and her mother's self-hatred, them feeling ugly and being reaffirmed of that, mirrors the self-hatred apparent in the black community. Furthermore, double oppression of black women, or let's say misogynoir, is another effect that came from white supremacy. On one hand, women are already being oppressed due to their gender, and the color of their skin being a darker shade adds to the oppression even more. Fantasy worlds as an escape from brutal realities. Pauline, for example, tries to escape reality through the world of movies, even though it doesn't quite help with her self-confidence watching all the stereotypical romance movies. For Peccola, who is very imaginative, the blue eyes she is fantasizing about and wishing for are her metaphorical holy grail that will solve all issues and save her from her miserable life. Another theme is human cruelty, which is evident in the child abuse Peccola experiences due to her father raping her, or the domestic violence that is prevalent in the Breedlove household. As there is human cruelty, there is also human suffering. For example, the self-hatred and suffering Pauline feels being denied a romance that she sees as a privilege of the white stereotypes in her movies. Peccola also struggles a lot with self-hatred and loneliness. One thing she is most afraid of is being hated by and invisible to others. Last but not least, we have colorism, which here means a difference of darker versus lighter skin. The character Maureen, for example, is a mulatto child, whose skin is a lot lighter than the other characters in the book. She also makes use of that fact and acts superior to the others with darker skin. Now, at the end of our short presentation, we'll look at some question exercises you could think about for the ARL. What are some of the most important themes in the novel? How does the title relate to the content of the novel? How do Peccola and Claudia differ in relation to whiteness? What function do the marigold seeds have in the novel? How would you interpret the characters' names and their symbolism? What is the main message of the Bluest Eye and why? We hope this presentation helped you with your understanding of the Bluest Eye, and we wish you much success in your ARL exams.